I want you to listen very closely to this monologue. This Schumer sham, a Schiff show, it's over. And I'm going to tell you why it's over. I listened closely to every detail of the president's defense, including the actions of quid and pro and quo Joe and zero experience Hunter, and how Joe shook down the country of Ukraine. Everyone looked at what Hunter and Joe did and were doing and said, yeah, don't do this. Hunter has zero experience in Ukraine, no experience in oil, no experience in gas, no experience in energy. Hunter Biden got a whopping $84,000 a month. Did you know, Pam Bondi told us, the average American family of four makes less than $54,000 in a year. Everyone knew, everyone knows now, everyone saw this at the time for what this was. And then you have Joe Biden. We just passed the 2-year anniversary. Joe Biden on tape admitting to the shakedown. And by the way, at a minimum, everyone sees what this is. We can identify it. We have identified several potential serious violations of the law. Felony. Look at this on your screen. The Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, 15 U.S.C. 78. Quote, it is illegal for a U.S. person to coerce, you're not getting the billion unless you have fire, or influence through bribery or extortion. If you fire him, you get the billion. A foreign nation into taking action that might financially benefit that person, his family, Hunter, or business. And that's not all. Bribery, 18 U.S.C. 201C. Whoever corruptly gives, offers, or promises anything of value to a public official to influence an official act is guilty of bribery. You're not getting the billion unless you fire the prosecutor, paying my zero experienced son $83,000 a month, millions and millions of dollars. Oh, we found another law. It's called the Gratuities Act, 18 U.S.C. 201B, giving, offering, promising anything of value to a public official in exchange for any official act. And the Hobbs Act, 18 U.S.C. 1951, a threat to a foreign official in order to obtain an official benefit affecting interstate foreign commerce would constitute extortion. Now, never forget, it is the President of the United States' duty, his sworn duty, to faithfully execute the laws of the land. Tonight, the country now needs to make a transition. This BS witch hunt is over. It has to be over. The president will rightly be acquitted and vindicated for good reason, and I'll explain. Go back to the Trump-Zelensky call that the president released freely. During the call, what was the president worried about? He was worried about Ukrainian corruption. He was concerned. Remember, Zelensky was working with some of the same bad actors in the previous Ukrainian administration, the Poroshenko administration. And he was worried Ukraine had interfered in the 2016 election, separate and apart from Russian interference that Devin Nunes warned us all about in 2014. A Ukrainian court had determined government officials interfered in our election. A January 2017, January 11th to be exact, investigative report from Politico detailed Ukrainian interference. We have described it in detail. And after, by the way, 3 years, never-ending, nonstop, lying hysteria about foreign election interference, it would have been a dereliction of duty, would it not, for President Trump to not rightly address the issue. Do us a favor. My country's been through all of this. Can we get to the bottom of it? He never mentioned aid or a quid or a pro or a quo like Joe. And let's not forget, on the very call in question, not a penny was ever mentioned. Now, there are weak Republicans in this country, so-called moderate Democrats in the U.S. Senate, thinking about giving validation to this Schumer Schiff-sham show with new witnesses and new investigations. Well, to all of you that are thinking about that, you are not only ripping the country apart, you are spitting in the face of every law-abiding American, your constituents, because this president was looking out for their money. And you are also simultaneously trampling on and shredding the Constitution of the United States because of what? A shameful political stunt? Because you can't wait 280 days knowing you're likely going to, well, lose in the next election? Well, how stupid and dangerous do you want to be here? Because the total BS surrounding Bolton is just the latest manufactured crisis. Now, I've known John Bolton for, I think, 2 decades, thereabouts. I have a message for John Bolton tonight. He used to be a colleague here at the Fox News Channel. I remember when John was first up for the job of National Security Advisor. I had heard through many sources John was calling everyone that would listen, asking them to put in a good word for him with President Trump. He wanted this job badly. I spoke on an occasion to John Bolton, and I asked him why he wanted the job, and I also remember asking him, well, you know, Donald Trump's foreign policy positions are very different than your foreign policy positions. Would you be willing to serve his agenda, not yours? Again, I've known him for 2 decades. Now, I'm not today recognizing the guy that I thought I knew, because John Bolton, I say to you tonight, if you have something to say, John, come here. You worked here. This is your old home. Come on the show and have your say on this show. We've invited you repeatedly, radio and TV, over the past number of weeks. Now, nobody, I think, truly knows what's in his book, except for whatever manuscript he might have sent to whoever's seen it. I have no idea if any of these reports are true, but let's assume for a second that they are true. Here's the bottom line. Jim Jordan has reminded us, 4 facts never change. This case is over. Why? Because the Trump-Zelensky transcripts, they show 0 linkage between U.S. aid and any investigation. The one fact witness in the House said when he asked the president, what do you want? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. No quid pro or quo. Both Trump and Zelensky, they have denied repeatedly that any aid was conditional. There was never any pressure whatsoever. Zelensky even going so far as, what are you people talking about? What are you doing over there? At the time of the initial call, Ukrainian officials never knew that the U.S. aid was temporarily paused. And don't forget, and this is critical, even if Donald Trump maybe said, they better do this or I'm not giving them any aid. Let's assume he might have even said that. Doesn't matter, does it? Because the 4th fact that never changes, that the aid was released, in one case earlier, with 0 strings attached. And that means they got the aid. They never did anything. They never said they'd do anything. They never called for an investigation. They never said they'd call for an investigation. And they have said all of that repeatedly. And I add 1/5, well, if you will, fact that'll never change. There were 5 separate subsequent high-level meetings. In the meetings with Zelensky, all those audition witnesses, hearsay, opinion witnesses all said the same thing. Aid was never discussed. Linkage was never brought up. So you have here an anonymous source telling, what, a liberal hack from the liberal New York Times that hates Donald Trump, that John Bolton, in a manuscript, well, is claiming the president wanted Ukraine to investigate the Bidens and maybe election interference. Okay, let's assume that's true. And that's a big if, considering it's the New York Times. But let's say it's true. Does it make any difference? Well, I would answer absolutely none whatsoever. Now, the DOJ and the Chief of Staff, Mick Mulvaney, they totally refute Bolton's claims. Now you have conflicting testimony. At best, Bolton's testimony would be heavily disputed. But again, the facts don't change. Even then, it doesn't matter one bit. President Trump is allowed to talk. He's allowed to vent. He's allowed to exchange ideas with his close advisors. That is not a crime. It's kind of like, well, you tell your friend, I want to rob this jewelry store. I want to rob this grocery store, convenience store. I'm gonna punch this guy in the face. I'm gonna rip somebody's face off. But you never do it. You weren't seriously plotting the act. That would not be a crime now, would it? We all think about things. Thoughts flow through our brains constantly, at least if you're a conservative. And when you think about things, that's not a crime in any way. And in the White House, it's certainly not a crime to talk about policy ideas or to vent. Now, if the president did what they said, it would still be so insignificantly meaningless that it would never rise to the level of quid pro quo Joe and zero experience Hunter. So for you senators, you know, if you're going to validate thought crimes to smear a duly elected president just 280 days before the election, when the facts never change, John Bolton could say over and over, the president said there's going to be linkage, but there never was. We will be in big trouble as a country if you legitimize this. John Bolton, come on the show. Your country wants to hear from you. I'd like to hear from you. You have a story to tell the country, John. Stop playing games. This is not a game when it's the presidency of the United States. It's not a game when you're pushing the boundaries of executive privilege, which George Washington used, and every president pretty much in between and since. Take a look.
The trial of the leader of the free world and the duly elected president of the United States. It is not a game of leaks and unsourced manuscripts. That's politics, unfortunately. Now, to be specific, you cannot impeach a president on an unsourced allegation. But to have a removal of a duly elected president based on a policy disagreement, that is not what the framers intended. And if you lower the bar that way, danger, danger, danger.
Yep, Jay's right. What's happening here is dangerous. Now a small group of Republican senators, well, they're thinking of caving to the Democratic colleagues. Maybe they want to be liked. Maybe they're putting their own election results ahead of the Constitution and what's in the best interest of the country and the principle of executive privilege and the right of a president to get free and fair and open advice from his top advisors. Maybe they want the Democrats to get all the witnesses they want. Maybe they want the smear to go on and on and on. And because of the New York Times saying in a manuscript that Bolton might have said that the presidents once had linkage, but linkage never happened. And let me say one other thing. I want to address Mitt Romney. I liked Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney, I think, would have been a great president in 2012. He was the better person to be president. I thought I was friends with Mitt Romney. I don't recognize this guy anymore. Another one. He has been a huge disappointment. I thought he would have been a better president than Obama. We all went all in, wanted him to win, like his family, wife, kids, wonderful people. But this sanctimonious Trump hatred is getting old, especially as you watch the president accomplishing everything you said, Mitt Romney, you wanted to have happen in the country. Really? Mitt, look at the 4 facts, I'll say 5, that never change. Ukrainians said they never felt pressure. They never, ever did a single thing. They never said they'd do a thing, and they got all their money. So do you really think that you should take on the role of the U.S. House of Representatives, the sole constitutional role to impeach, and now you want to put on a whole other case and take on their job? All I see, with all due respect, Mitt Romney, is your personal hatred for Donald Trump, and it's clearly clouding your judgment. Do you really think Americans are too stupid to choose their president? God, Mitt Romney, Senator, we have an election in 280 days. Why don't you go out and campaign for quid or pro quo Joe? I haven't heard you talk about quid pro quo Joe. I haven't heard you talk about zero experience Hunter either. I haven't heard you ask for them to be called as witnesses. Really? You're not getting the billion unless you fire the prosecutor that's investigating my zero experience son? You don't want him as a witness? And do you not think that the president, knowing this, is saying, wow, that seems really bad? And Mitt, I'll send over to your office tomorrow all the applicable laws in the case of quid pro quo Joe and zero experience Hunter. And by the way, the media that's loving you now, Mitt, they were the same people that were out there saying you were a misogynist, you were a racist, you cut some kid's hair in grade school. They were the ones saying everything and anything about you to destroy you. Do you think they like you? Do you think they're gonna like you? Never. And this goes for you other Republican senators. You really believe the very same Democrats that accused that innocent man, Justice Kavanaugh, of being a serial gang rapist and put the country through all of that mess? Are you going to believe the same congenital liars that pushed the Russian hoax conspiracy theories for over 3 years, never touched Hillary Clinton's dirty Russian dossier, never touched premeditated fraud on the FISA abuse, spying on a presidential campaign, a transition team, and a presidency? You want to trust those guys? The hacks that have been plotting impeachment since 2016, all through 2017, 18, 19. This Bolton hysteria, manufactured crisis, to use a term, is just the latest example in what is, let's see, the media mob, which is state-run media for the Democratic Radical Socialist Party, and their phony, feigned, selective moral outrage. It's the latest so-called bombshell. Everything's a bombshell. Destroying this administration. This is it. We got it. It's a bombshell. Bombshell, bombshell. Take a look.
Bombshell. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton ready to turn on the president as news leaks from his explosive new book.
Bolton drops the bombshell in an unpublished manuscript for his forthcoming book.
An explosive new account from former National Security Advisor John Bolton.
John Bolton's book, which is as explosive as expected.
Bombshell report upending the impeachment trial of President Trump.
Bolton's bombshell. The Bolton bombshell.
That new book by John Bolton is called The Room Where It Happened, and it could be a bombshell.
Oh, and tonight, by the way, we just learned that, in fact, we have, the ticket that, in fact, it was Chucky Schumer has, where we learned that Chuck Schumer gave a ticket to tomorrow's impeachment hearing to Lev Parnas. That's the guy indicted by the Southern District of New York. I kind of think they're really serious people. Also say campaign finance reform, and also say that he took $1 million from Russia and didn't want to report it.